We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every man should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for all. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is March 15th, 2016, and I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. We are back after being off the air for about 3 weeks, actually a little over 3 weeks. I had taken a little break, and my mother was in town as well. I'm getting some static. I think that's just over my headphones, not coming out through over the air. So thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights, Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, and you can listen live on Spreaker.com and NonPartisanLibertyForall.com, and to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud, as well as a few other sites. You can get all that information at NonPartisanLibertyForall.com. And you can listen to those archives immediately after the show. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. So it's good to be back. I'm sure today's show will be a little off since I've been gone for a while. Haven't done anything really on the mic since the last show we did, and I think that was in February. So we're here. What was it? February 20 something. So we're here March 15th, already halfway through March of 2016, and in the thick of the presidential primaries. This is something I really try to ignore, the whole presidential election and really talking about it. And I think I've only talked, I've done two shows, I think, or maybe three at the most on it, which is pretty good considering we're on 3 nights a week. And the whole show wasn't on the whatever we might have been talking about, because I did a show on Trump. I did a show on why people are attracted to Trump and Bernie Sanders. And tonight we're going to talk again about Trump, but from a different aspect. And I feel like, yes, I don't want to talk about it, but I feel at the same time it can't be ignored. One of the reasons I really don't like talking about it is because I feel like I'm just doing the same thing that you're going to hear every place else. Now, you're not going to hear the same opinion, and that's the whole point of doing it. But what I try to focus on the show are things that relate to the ideas of freedom that other broadcasts and other media don't talk about. So, like I've over the time of the show talked a lot about, say, police brutality, and I know that's come up on mainstream media, but only not anywhere near the way we've talked about it, and we've talked about it way before it even came up on mainstream media, and it only did because of a few incidences. and they've only talked about those very few incidences of people getting killed by police. And it goes beyond that. It's not just people getting killed by police. It's people getting harassed. It's people getting beaten. It's just the overall abuse of power and all of that stuff. So just using that as an example, and we've talked about a lot of other things that, yes, someone might write an article on it, but it's usually alternative media, and it's not covered in detail on any type of mainstream media or a document that gets unclassified or whatever it may be. So talking about something as mainstream as the election, which is being covered everywhere. Actually, right now, Donald Trump is making a speech, and we can actually go to that because it's being broadcast live on YouTube. So let me go to it for a second and see what he's even what he's talking about there. Go down, there's clapping.
Corey, good job, Corey. Good job. And Hope and our whole squad, right? So when this began, Melania and I said, got to do it. And she was so supportive, and she's been so supportive. It's been amazing. And we have to do it. We came down the...
I want to be the first lady.
And it was about borders. And what happened is pretty quickly after that, and we shot right up. I shot right to the top of the polls and have been leading in the polls almost from the beginning.
See, even just listening to that right away, I mean, we listened, for 20 seconds, and right away, I guess he was going back to how did this start, and he said immigration, and we shot to the top of the polls right away. I talked about this before. This is one of the most arrogant, egotistical motherfuckers that exists. He really is. And it's not an act. He's always been like that. And I brought this up before, that he used to come on Howard Stern and talk. And I always thought, what a fucking asshole. Because he is so arrogant. And when you look at all the lawsuits and all the times he threatened to sue people, he threatened to sue Ted Cruz, and there's so many things that if he was actually allowed to become president, and I say allowed because let me go back to the beginning for people who don't know or never listened to the show before, or just to remind people, of course, I think the whole thing is rigged. Whoever is going to become president has already been decided. So this is just a show no different than a wrestling match where it's already been planned. Now, I seem to think that it's been planned since 2008 that Hillary would be the next president. I think if they had to make a fucking clone of Hillary or have a Hillary double if Hillary had died, and who knows, Hillary could be dead, and for all we know, that's a Hillary double walking around who's just taking orders from somebody else. And I don't really believe that. I'm making a joke, but in a way, that's not impossible. It's something that it wouldn't surprise me. I don't really think that, but I'm just saying that that's the extent that this shit is rigged. So that's what I believe. I believe that in 2008, so for people who don't know, and there's video of this, I've talked about it before, in 2008, the Bilderberg Group, who, if you haven't heard of the Bilderberg Group, it's like a bunch of billionaires and important people that all get together. A lot of them are former government. A lot of them run major companies, billionaires. They secretly meet It's not secret because people find out about it, but it's secret in the sense that you can't get into it. You can't get. It's not recorded. It's kept. They try to keep it as secret as possible. People find out stuff about it. For the most part, what they find out is really just some of the people, or I think they release a list now, of people, but of only who they want you to know who's there. And it's weird because you have a whole bunch of people who have nothing to do with the government, because it's actually illegal for any government official to attend, because they do, I believe, have foreign heads of state there. And they talk all about government. They have an agenda of what they want to discuss regarding the world and the not world government, but an agenda of basically what Congress would talk about or something. So, and then of course there's the Council on Foreign Relations with Hillary was there about a month ago. And I don't know that most people even know that that's not a government agency. That's just a group that a bunch of quote unquote important people and billionaires put together on their own and do the same thing. I don't know how often they meet. They're not as secretive. I know Bill Maher had the head of the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, on the show, and then they have the Trilateral Commission. These are conspiracy theorists say that they all run the world, these three groups. However, I don't know that they run the world, but there's definitely influence from these groups. It's obvious, and you can go and point to a lot of examples. But in 2008, one, that Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter both came out of the Trilateral Commission. They were both governors out of small states that nobody knew who the fuck they were. But there's other things as well. And why do you have these groups that are put together with millionaires and important people, well, billionaires, I suppose, and important people discussing government policy and foreign policy and things along those lines, and being secretive about it as well for the most part. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, the Bilderberg Group meets once a year. That year in 2008, which was the year of the presidential election of Barack Obama, they happened to be meeting somewhere in Virginia. So that weekend, and people might remember this, Hillary met with Barack Obama one weekend, and nobody knows where. They thought maybe it was at Hillary's house. Maybe it was because I believe at the time she was a senator living in the D.C. area. And I don't believe anybody was able to 100% prove where they were, although it's said that they were both at the Bilderberg meeting. And what is on video is that during that same time, a bunch of reporters, about a plane full of reporters, and I saw the video of it, are talking with the former, I think he was the former press secretary. It's not David Axelrod, but I can picture his face. He became a correspondent for MSNBC after he left the administration. But at the time, he might have been running the campaign or something along those lines. So he got everybody on this plane, and they said that Obama was going to come on the plane and all the reporters were going to interview him or whatever, because I believe at that point he was leading, know what month it was. I don't recall, but it was during, they were still in the primary. Obama was leading Hillary, and I think he was about to, he was close to winning. But I know there were some issues in, I believe, Michigan and in Florida where Hillary could have contested something, but she decided not to. And it was after this meeting, like before that, she was talking about doing that. And there's the video of all the reporters are on the plane saying, well, where's Obama? We're going to talk to him. And they don't really tell them until like they shut the doors of the plane and they're about to take off, or they take off and, he had to go someplace else. So you have all these reporters in the air so that are covering Obama, so they can't find out where he is because they're on a plane and supposedly they're in this meeting. Now, whether that's true or not, from what I understand, I believe they admitted that they got together that weekend. Of course, they're not going to come out and say they got together at the Bilderberg Group. But I do believe that at that time, Hillary agreed essentially to concede to Obama the nomination, and that it was agreed to that she would become president after Obama. So that's where we're at now, obviously, and she's sitting there praising Obama. And it might have been agreed to that she would become Secretary of State at the same time. She may have not wanted vice president, or why she didn't become vice president, I don't know. I mean, I think that from what I understand, I mean, it doesn't seem like a job that a prestigious job, I guess I would say, because you look at the vice presidents, and I mean, Dan Quayle was vice president. So it seems like, if the president dies, then yeah, it becomes a prestigious job because you're not the vice president anymore. But while you're vice president, it's like, okay, I'm vice president. They're president of the Senate, but they're just like, they don't have any power over anything that I'm aware of. I think they're like the deciding vote if there's a tie in the House of Representatives or something. So Secretary of State, it was probably something she wanted. So now we come to 2016. Again, she's praising Obama. And you look at the climate back then, and I don't know people that remember. I mean, we're talking about 8 years ago, but you had the Bush presidency, and people were mad. Well, when I say people, I guess I don't want to say ignorant people, or I guess all people in general were mad, but you have the mainstream, I believe in voting in the government, and those people, because everybody was mad. People were sick of government, and all people, I think, for the most part. I mean, not every single person, but the mainstream, I guess that's what I'll call them, mainstream people that were mad, that I think that's when Occupy Wall Street was starting, and there was the blowback towards the government. There was, of course, the bailouts, the Iraq War, all of these things. And it's like things were really building up where people were, I think, sick of government. And this tends to happen like every 8 years. Yeah, this happens. And this is the only reason why, if Trump becomes president, I could be wrong in what I'm saying, and he could be more controllable or more down with the program of the billionaires, being that he's part of one, but I think he's like the clown of the billionaires. So, to say he's not part of the establishment, who do you think the establishment is? He's not part of the political establishment, but who do you think is behind all these politicians, the billionaires, the corporations, these groups that I mentioned? I think it's a combination of all of them that really run things. So is he one of those people that actually is up there with them? I think he's too much of a fucking clown, but he does give money to all these campaigns. So to say that he's not an establishment person or part of the overall establishment, he's not an establishment politician. Obviously, he's not part of the political establishment because he's not a politician, but to say he's not part of the establishment is bullshit. In some ways, it's a lot worse. But when you go back to 2008, this whole thing with Obama, the change and the people wanted something different and people wanted something new. And again, I'm talking about more the main, what I'll call the mainstream people that believe in this bullshit and that watch mainstream media or government media, and they thought, hey, we can have something. They're the ones who keep believing over and over again. They're the ones who get fed up with government and think that somebody can come in and be the savior. That there's, it's just, we got to get the right people. They're the people that say we just need the right person or the right people. And they've been saying that essentially for probably since I've been alive. It's the same shit every single time. It's always the most important election. It's the country's over, because they're saying that now. But the Republicans, at least, and they said, what about the last 8 years and how bad Obama supposedly is? And to then say, well, this is the most important election ever. The country's over if anybody other than Ted Cruz gets elected. This is basically what Glenn Beck is saying. So, and along with the Republicans themselves, they're not saying if, Ted Cruz, like Marco Rubio is obviously not saying if Ted Cruz, but, meaning like him or, one of the Republicans besides Donald Trump. So they're saying how important this is. But back then it was the same thing that this is the other people saying this. We need to change things. We need to do something different. We need somebody who's not an insider. I think it was more an insider because Barack Obama was a first-term senator and he was young and he is black, and he talked about hope and change and, this is different. This is, we just had George Bush. We need something different. And then what happened was a certain amount of people, not everybody, because you do have people that criticize Obama for basically doing the same shit that Bush did, because he's no different. He just took the torch from Bush and then, just kept going with the same policies, just bringing them forward, and that's what's going to happen with the next president. It doesn't matter who it is. They're just going to take the same stuff and bring it forward. There's little differences that are really irrelevant just to try to show the people, oh, look, these parties are different. But the main theme of controlling every aspect of people's lives, spying on them, all of these type of things will continue no matter who becomes president. And again, it's possible that, I guess, Trump could become president, but I doubt it. But the reason for what people are doing is, I don't know if they're only hearing a couple of things, or they're listening to debates, or what the fuck they're doing. But because I've listened to a lot of the debates, just because, as I've mentioned before, I can listen to headphones while working, and I don't catch everything, but I catch some of this stuff, and it's the things that come out of this guy's mouth, man. And I'm not talking about the things that are deemed not politically correct, or the things that, like, they're trying to, I guess there was a fight or something, and they're trying to paint him now as racist, and violence erupts at his rallies because of one incident. That's the media trying to bring him down. And what they're doing, I think, is actually helping him in a sense, because then the people can look, the media's trying to bring him down. You have people like Alex Jones and who's this other fucker? Not that, I think Alex Jones does some positive things, and I used to be I would say a fan. I wouldn't consider myself a fan anymore, but he does a lot of positive things. But I don't know where the fuck his head is on this, where he's saying that, Trump is the savior of the globalist and world government and all of that stuff, that he's going to be the one to save everything. And I'm like, do you listen to what this guy says, or do you just look into a fucking crystal ball and based on what? Because if you listen to everything this fucking guy says, first of all, if you listen to the things that he's said in the past, I mean, he's totally changed everything that he's said throughout his life. I mean, he used to be a Democrat. He used to be against or for abortion. Now he's against abortion. He used to be this. He used to be that. He's totally changed. Now he's he's saying how religious he is. He even made a comment that something about the reason people were going after him because he's really religious. And we know that he's lying. He's totally lying when it comes to that he's some big religious guy, that he's full of shit. And he says it like it sounded so fake, because he's trying to get that side of the vote and say, I'm a conservative and I'm a religious conservative, and people don't say anything about it. And that's an example of what I'm talking about when it comes to him, that everything he says is bullshit. He's just an egomaniac who wants to be president. And you look at everything he says, everything he does, I went to a great school. I have big words. It was something he said that John Oliver, and I don't want to play the clip because then I'm afraid that on YouTube they may flag my video or something for copyright. But he was talked about by John Oliver, and they played a clip that said, I have words, all these big words or something like that. And it just, it sounded idiotic, or I know these words. He talks about how smart he is, how he graduated from the best schools, how he's so successful in business when he bankrupted all these companies and he had all these failures. Now, you could say, okay, that's part of the media saying, it's fact, but okay, that the media is jumping on him for all the things that weren't successful, because anybody in business, they'll have some successes, and I guess they'll have some things that don't succeed. But he had like Trump University, Trump Airline, Trump this, Trump that. He did have a successful show, I guess, The Apprentice, but that was about his fucking ego. That was the other thing. But if you listen to the shit he says, so everybody knows he wants to build a big wall. So to conservatives, I guess they want a big wall, so they can keep us in, and just like, and I'm going to talk about this other article later, another example of how the U.S. is really East Germany, but a wall will just make it even more like East Germany, just like they had a fucking wall that separated East and West Germany. There'll be a wall that separates one part of North America from the other part. And it's insane. Anyway, so people like that. But the main reason, I don't think people are listening to anything he's saying, because I think the main reason is they're just like, they want somebody who's not in the political establishment. They're just looking at it like, and I don't think they're paying attention to anything. I think it's all low information voters that catch things here and there, and then they're just saying, oh, well, the media is trying to attack him, but he is really the non-establishment, and look, the Republican establishment is going after him, and they are, and that's just wanting people to want to vote for him more, because they're like, look, he's different, he's not a politician, and he says what he thinks. Well, yeah, like he said how basically, freedom of speech, who gives a fuck about freedom of speech? I mean, again, this is a guy who goes and sues everybody for what they say. I could see him as somebody who would put people to death or go after reporters and put them in jail for what they print about him. And I'm serious. That's like the type of guy he is. He talked about killing the families of terrorists. He talked about more, how great police are, and having a bigger military and spending more on the military. Do you know how much money is spent on the military now? It actually, for once, they cut spending barely. It's still, even after cutting spending, I believe it's still 54% of the discretionary spending. It's like $600 billion. Of course, they want to put it. He talks about how big he wants the military to be. He said, well, we need to scare everybody. So supposedly, if you make the military, 70% of fucking discretionary spending, 80%. I mean, how fucking big do you need the military to be? It's ridiculous. And I've talked about this before. I don't think there even should be a military, for one. And I know people flip out when I say that, and I don't give a fuck. Because when it comes to the military, all that does is give the president and the government an army to go and do their bidding, basically. Because if anybody attacks the United States, you have enough people with enough guns to take care of it. And that's bottom line. That's why, if you talk about the Constitution, nobody ever mentions, militias. I guess that just gets forgot about. I don't know. But the whole thing about they were against standing armies. That was the whole point. Plus, if the army really wanted to, who's to stop the army? So the army, let me not say the army, the military is supposed to follow the orders of obviously the commander in chief. But what if they say, you know what, fuck it. We're not going to follow the orders of the government. We're just going to do whatever we want to do. We're going to take over. There could be a military coup. And the people can't do anything. And this whole thing about the checks and balances, the only check and balance that there could be, because they're all within government. Government cannot check government. It makes no sense. Well, to me, it doesn't, because it's all government. But if the people, the only way to have a check on government is to have enough weapons to be able to defend yourself against government, or the people as a whole defend themselves against government. That's it, because government is based on force and violence, and that's it. And that's how they get people to do all these ridiculous laws and rob people of their earnings and all of these things, or extort, really. And who's to stop the military from just taking over? Why don't they just take over the whole fucking world? You think about the fact that, look at how big it is now. I mean, and he wants to grow it bigger. He talked about going after ISIS, and most of the shit that he said is just things that are totally anti-freedom, really. I can't really think of anything he said. Like he said, fuck freedom of speech. Oh, he says he defends the Second Amendment. However, he supported, I believe, the gun ban in 1994, I believe. So, or some restrictions before. So now he doesn't, but back then he did. So I don't know if anybody's listening to this guy. I had a friend today who said he was going to vote for him. And what reason did he give? Well, the reason that he gave was that, well, he's not a politician, and look what politicians are doing. And I see that rationale, because that's definitely an issue as far as what's going on with the government and what politicians have done since, the beginning of time, and the freedoms that existed that are non-existent at this point. Well, there was always a lack of freedom, but there was a higher level of freedom. So all these things that are going on, but he's a fraud. He's duping people into thinking that he's some guy who's going to save the country or something. Again, Alex Jones, who is, for anybody who doesn't know him, I mean, people just call him a conspiracy theorist, but is promoting Trump and saying Trump is against the globalists that are going to, start a world government and all of these things. And I'm like, are you listening to what Trump is saying? Because everything he says, like I said, with the exception of defending the Second Amendment, but he says everything's negotiable. He told the fucking New York Times in an interview that they won't release. Some of it got leaked about, well, I can be whoever. I can be, and he's already shown that by trying to come off as some evangelical or some big religious guy. And I can't believe he said that maybe he's being persecuted because he's religious. And it sounded so fake. So why is he in the election in the first place? Is this just a total... I mean, people can be influenced and not know that they're part of something else. So is he somebody who is part of this billionaire class that essentially controls the politicians? I know he's given money to them. I just, it's hard for me to believe that, because I picture these people as just evil people that want to control the world, and as so much smarter. I look at him as a clown. I really do. And how he comes off, and just how he acts, and the arrogance. And it's just, well, we won this, and in the winning, well, we're going to win. America's going to win in this. And whether it's him winning the states, whether it's him winning the by become, in money and business, or the country winning, or the America's going to win again. The only thing that people maybe caught that I guess they could look at as a positive thing, because it's something that people are concerned about, is jobs, where he says, well, I'm going to make sure that we bring all the jobs back. I'm going to put tariffs on these companies, or taxes on these companies that leave. I'm going to, so he's against free trade. And I believe in free markets, not something like the CPP, which is 30-something chapters that has nothing to do with free markets. To me, free markets is one-page agreement that says, hey, we can import stuff into your country and you don't tax us on it, and you import stuff into our country and we don't tax you on it, and we're good. That whole thing is a whole nother animal in itself. But he talks about how he's going to bring all these jobs back. And it's really not government's job to create jobs, in my opinion. It's their job to stay out of things so people can create jobs, to create an environment. Not even really to create that environment, because that, if they don't get involved, then that environment would automatically exist. Now, obviously, the government has gotten way too involved in that environment, and it does not exist. But if they didn't, then I think that you would, a lot of part of the reason, I know it also has to do with, well, we can make things over here for a lot less money and then bring them into the United States. But it also has to do with all the regulations and all the taxes and all of this stuff. I don't think companies just want to leave the United States. I don't. What do I know? But I don't think they just want to leave. I think that, yeah, some of them are greedy, but it also has to do with the fact that I believe the United States has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. So he's talking about tariffs and stuff like that, which is something that is the opposite of free markets, when he's not talking about, well, we're going to get rid of these regulations, or we're going to get rid of these high tax rates, and companies will hopefully just stay on their own because these things are pushing them out of the country. And as I mentioned earlier, and the reason why I'm bringing this up again is because one of his endorsements is Sheriff Joe Arpaio in the Phoenix area, who's a fucking nut, who treats people like shit. And he talks about how cops deserve to be treated with more respect. There's nothing, and I'm not saying that any of the people that are supporting him care about freedom, I guess, because if you don't, then you should definitely vote for him. Now, I mean, what's the difference on the Democratic side? Essentially, at this point, after tonight, Hillary has won. I think they have called at least 3 states for her. I know Florida and Ohio already tonight. Let me see. I know Ted Cruz is speaking right now, and he's close at Missouri. He's Clem and Trump are battling it out in Missouri right now. So he may win there. Right now he's ahead with 77% of the vote in, but he's only ahead by 0.1%. So he's right there with Missouri. I don't know if that is a winner take all state. That was the whole thing with Florida. Trump won Florida, but Kasich won Ohio, and both of those states were, I guess, the delegates were winner take all states. So they have some states where the winner ends up getting all the delegates, and other states, and most of the other states so far were this way, where it depends on the districts. So Trump won Illinois, but Cruz came in about 10 points behind him. I don't know if that's a winner take all state. And North Carolina, Donald Trump won as well, but he won by 4%, and same thing. I don't know if that's a winner take all state, neither. So I guess we'll see where things are at tomorrow. So tonight, I think, I don't think I'm missing any, was Missouri, Illinois, Florida, Ohio. Trump won Illinois and Florida. I may be missing a state out west, but I believe that's it for tonight with the states. And I believe Hillary won everything, but Missouri hasn't come in yet. Sanders is leading with Missouri, but pretty much by winning Ohio and Florida and where she's at anyway, I don't think there's going to be any problem with Hillary getting the Democratic nomination. And that's where I pretty much think that, and maybe Trump's, the plan was, okay, hey, we want Trump to be the nominee because, one, the Republican Party doesn't even want him, and there's all this shit that's going to come out, and that Hillary will win no problem. Now, you still have that, and maybe they're preying on the percentage of people that are still Obama supporters and would be Hillary supporters, and you have women that will just vote for Hillary because they want, not all women, but you have some women, because I've heard them say it, that they would just vote for Hillary because they want a woman president. And the reason I say it's all rigged is because, like I said, between the media, between the political parties, between all of that. So they know what they need to do to ensure that a certain candidate wins. Maybe they, being the powers that be, already have a deal with Trump, essentially, and Trump's going to do what they want Trump to do. That seems hard to believe, I mean, to me, it's just a joke. Now we did have George W. Bush as president, and a lot of these guys it's all a fucking joke. It really is when you look at politics and they call them the leader of the free world, and it's hard for me to even take any of this fucking shit seriously. But Trump, to have even somebody that like me that doesn't believe in government, and to have a President Trump is just a joke. And I'm not saying that because he's not a politician. I think someone like Ross Perot, although sometimes his voice is kind of annoying, but I think I'm thinking of the Dana Carvey version of his voice that was on Saturday Night Live that was meant to be annoying. But I was pretty young back then, but I supported Ross Perot. Like, I was too young to vote. I've never voted, and I will not vote because I don't believe in it. But Ross Perot was somebody who I guess you can compare to Trump, but Ross Perot, to me, came off like he knew what he was doing. And now granted, I was a lot younger, and what did I know back then? I wasn't even 18 yet. So it was totally different, I guess, my perception, and even the amount that I followed it. I wasn't doing a radio show trying to follow a lot of this stuff in detail. But I just can't see this fucking guy as a president. Now, I don't want anybody as president. I don't want a leader. I don't need a leader. I mean, even the things these guys talk about and the way they talk is, well, we need to lead this country into whatever, and that we need their leadership, and we need all this leader fucking bullshit. And it's just it's all just bullshit to me. It really is. But I just can't see the powers that be wanting or having Trump as president. Now, again, I think it will really show how fucked up the U.S. is, and maybe it's a positive thing. But I mean, I see this guy becoming a dictator, and maybe that's what they want. If it's a dictator controlled, maybe that's what they want in there. And again, they're going to have a controlled dictator in office. I still think that the whole plan is that Hillary ends up winning, but again, I think people are falling for this whole thing of, because Trump is not a politician. But again, he's worse in a way. He was the guy giving the money to the politicians. He was the guy asking for favors. He's the guy behind the politicians. Now, again, how much they listen to him, whether it was, I just see him as, again, too much of a clown where, yeah, he gave the money so he could build his buildings and use eminent domain is something that he supported. He thinks, oh, yeah, if we want to build something that is good for the neighborhood, it doesn't have to even have to do with government, then, they get enough money, we can kick them out. I mean, he believes in shit like that. This is not a guy who believes in any type of freedom. So, and neither do Republicans. So, And I know some of these have been open primaries and closed primaries, really all, which means, you know, anybody can vote in them or only the party. Now, if you think about it, they're getting federal money, and there was a lawsuit, I believe, in New Jersey because there's federal money going into this. So if there's federal money, anybody should be able to vote in them. If you want to have your own private fucking party, use your own private fucking money. But so with that, I disagree. But if it's mostly Republicans that are voting for Trump, and partially, you know, and I know that the media is anti-Trump for the most part as well, but it seems that they're saying, well, if you took out Kasich and Rubio and it was just Cruz and Trump, that Cruz would beat Trump and that he would also beat Hillary. And this is what all the polls are saying. Now, I don't know about that. But usually people want they're not stupid, but it's just a cycle. It's the same thing. And that's why you usually see like a Democrat and then like a Republican, because people think like, oh yeah, we just need a change. We need something different. And they keep thinking that they're going to get a different result, that things are going to change. And really, they're both the same party. It's rigged. They get the person in there. They do the agenda of the powers that be. And then there you go. It goes in circles. Well, actually, it's not really a circle because it's really a straight line just going forward. But people are just going in their own circles while they're sitting there saying, we need somebody else, we need a change, we need whatever. And now that's what they seem to be doing with Trump. So I'm going to take a quick break. If you'd like to call in, you could call in at, I even forget my own number because it's been so long. I'm going to have to look at my number. Because the last, I'm gone for 3 weeks and I lose my number. And then I pick up my phone and right away, Hillary won 3 primaries and Donald Trump won 3 primaries. But the number is 702-470-7664. I did know that. 702-470-7664. And you can also Skype into the show, even though I'm not logged in the Skype. Let me log into Skype, but you can you can call in through via Skype. Just send a contact request to NonPartisanLIbertyForall. It's all one word. I know it's my first day back, so give me a break. And we're only going till 9 tonight. I think going forward that I'm gonna do the show till 9 for now, just because I'm actually getting some sleep. I've been getting sleep, which has been good, and I've been going to sleep probably by 10, and I actually don't feel like I was up all night. So I'm somebody who needs essentially needs 8 hours sleep, or it's hard for me to function. So anyway, again, you can call in at 702-740-7664, or you can Skype into the show. Username NonPartisanLIbertyForall. Just send a contact request and we will take your call. So we'll be right back after this. We have some clips of Donald Trump. Some of them I actually played before, but they still apply. So We'll be right back. NonPartisanLIbertyForall.com.
Real estate mogul Donald Trump has been dominating the business landscape since the early 1970s. Since leaving his fingerprint on the real estate industry, Trump has gone on to be a television personality, author, and now with his name in the running to become President of the United States, a politician. So, here are 10 facts about Donald Trump. While not being an actor or movie star, Donald Trump is one of the few to ever win a Razzie Award for a cameo appearance in a movie with his role in Ghosts Can't Do It, taking home the infamous award in 1990. For those of you who don't know what the Razzies are, it's like the Oscars, but for the worst movies of the year. The now famous Trump brand spans a wide variety of industries, including real estate, hospitality, entertainment, mortgages, restaurants, catering, ice cream, online travel, menswear, fragrance, golf, home furnishings, transportation, model management, vodka, and more, all developed by Trump himself. As of 2015, Donald Trump is the only presidential candidate with his own board game, unsurprisingly titled Trump the Game. Released in 1988, the Monopoly-esque game requires players to invest in real estate properties, while simultaneously attempting to bankrupt competitors. It was ultimately discontinued after dismal sales and harsh reviews. Dissatisfied with President Obama's initial candidacy, Trump was an active member of the birther movement that questioned the president's birthplace. He even went so far as to send investigators to Obama's native Hawaii to back up his accusations. Even after Obama released his birth certificate to the public in 2014, Trump continued to dismiss its legitimacy. In 2013, comedian Bill Maher jokingly accused Trump of being the son of a monkey to mock him for his obsession with Obama's birth certificate, and then offered $5 million to prove his father was not a baboon. Trump called his bluff and released his birth certificate publicly. When Maher didn't pay up, Trump sued, only to drop the charges months later. In another lawsuit, Trump railed against New York Times author Timothy O'Brien because the writer miscalculated his net worth in a book published in 2006. The book's citation claimed Trump was worth between $150 and $250 million, whereas Trump said he was worth billions. The court dismissed his lawsuit in 2009. Donald Trump's now infamous catchphrase, "You're fired," was spawned from his reality TV show The Apprentice, starting in 2004 on NBC. Acting as the host of the program, Trump proceeded to eliminate celebrity contestants in order to find a head for one of Trump's companies. Trump made a whopping $15 million for each season on the show, which was canceled after announcing his campaign for president. Trump has owned the Miss Universe organization since 1996. This program also produces the Miss USA and Miss Teen USA pageants across the country. After Trump's controversial statements regarding Mexicans in his 2016 presidential campaign, NBC parted ways with him and refused to air the pageant from that year on. Trump has authored over 50 books. His first, The Art of the Deal, was published in 1987, and Trump claims it is the #1 best-selling business book of all time. Other titles include Trump, The Best Real Estate Advice I Ever Received, 100 Top Experts Share Their Strategies, and 10 Secrets I Learned from The Apprentice. Donald Trump, an avid flyer and collector of planes, has outfitted his private jet with gold trimmings, including a 24-karat gold-plated seatbelt. The plane has a top speed of 500 miles per hour and includes a bedroom and room for 43 other passengers. This incredible jet is worth over $100 million.
Good morning. Today, I'm very proud of myself.
This guy is huge.
I'm worth many billions of dollars.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our top 10 favorite Donald Trump moments.
What a great honor it must be for you to honor me tonight.
Number 10, Trump the brand. Donald Trump is a businessman, real estate developer, and mogul. But more than that, he is a brand. And that brand is larger than life. the Donald has brought his gold touch to a lot of different products.
I've got some business idea that I just want to tell you about, and I'll be a fool if...
Very quickly.
Our fave? Not the books, the buildings, or the booze, it's the board game.
My new game is Trump, the game. Trump, the game where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own.
Whether it's vodka, an airline, hotels, or casinos, if it's Trump, you can be sure it's tacky.
Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
Yes!
Play Trump, the game from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it.
Number 9. A Rosie by any other name is just as degenerate.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver.
Trump is not the nicest kid on the playground.
Rosie is a loser.
To be fair, Rosie started this feud. In 2006, after the Donald decided not to strip Miss USA of her crown when she was caught underage drinking, O'Donnell criticized his ethical judgment.
Everyone deserves a second chance.
It all went downhill from there.
So probably I'll sue her because it would be fun. I'd like to take some money out of her fat ass pockets.
Did they bury the hatchet? Nope. But he did wish her well after her heart attack in 2012, so give him some credit. Number 8. The Donald gives Vince McMahon a haircut.
Hey, look at this! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump taking down Vince McMahon! Oh my God! The hostile takeover of Donald Trump!
We know it's a huge shock that a class act like Trump is a wrestling fan and friends with Vince McMahon. Donnie has even been involved in some WWE storylines, one of which resulted in this.
Oh no! Oh my God!
Should Trump really be allowed to style other people's hair? Seriously though, how much would you pay to see Trump shaved bald? Number 7. Rudy and Donald sitting in a tree.
You know, you're really beautiful.
At one point or another, both Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump were legitimately possibly going to run for president. That's this Rudy Giuliani and this Donald Trump.
Maybe you could tell me what you think of this set.
I like that.
Sorry, we should have warned you first. You cannot unsee this. We don't even know what the message of this video is supposed to be, but we do think they make a cute couple.
Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh. Donald, I thought you were a gentleman.
Number 6. You're fired. You gotta give it to the Donald. He's great at finding strange new ways to feed his ego.
It's a little treat. You're going to see the nicest apartment in New York City. It's my apartment. I show this apartment to very few people. Presidents, kings.
One of his most successful is The Apprentice.
This is the chance to work for me at a huge salary.
The premise is pure Trump. He tells people what to do, how to do it, and has them battle for his approval. He even got a catchphrase.
You're fired.
And became one of TV's highest paid stars.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Number 5. Par for the course.
I don't want to ruin your day of golf at Trump National, but I have something to say.
A big shot American businessman purchases a pristine chunk of Scottish countryside to build. Is this the plot of a movie? Well, yes. But it was also the plot that unraveled at the hands of the Donald, as told by the documentary You've Been Trumped. However, instead of coming to love the area's regional charm and changing his plans like his movie counterpart, Trump bullied, bulldozed, and built his golf course.
I want to get rid of that house.
It's going to create a bit of a stir, but if we're
Who cares? Who cares? You know what? Who cares?
Number 4. Trump gives birther to some strange ideas.
Donald, you're beginning to sound a little ridiculous. I have to tell you.
I think you are, Wolf. Let me tell you something. I think you sound ridiculous.
Trump isn't a Barack Obama fan. He proved that by demanding to see Obama's birth certificate. You know, because there's no way he was born in America.
What has he got against you here? I don't get it.
You know, this all dates back to when we were growing up together in Kenya.
Yeah.
And,
whether it was a political dispute, latent racism, or just plain stupidity, we can't say. But when he then tries to blackmail the president into releasing his school records via a super-duper huge ginormous announcement, well, that's the last straw.
I will give to a charity of his choice, Inner City Children in Chicago, American Cancer Society, AIDS research, anything he wants, a check immediately for $5 million.
Number 3. Would he paint the White House gold?
I think I'd do a really good job. I think I'd protect this country.
Wasn't it easier when Donald Trump was only famous for making money and getting divorced? Somewhere along the way, Trump went from an eccentric businessman with a quirky hairdo to a right-leaning political force with a really quirky hairdo.
It's really mine, you know? It's like, come here. Come on, baby.
While he's donated to candidates in both parties, Trump threw his toupee into the ring in 2011 as a potential Republican Party nominee.
If I decide to run, you'll have the great pleasure of voting for the man that will easily go down as the greatest president in the history of the United States. Me, Donald John Trump.
That did make for some great sound bites about him and jokes about him.
Donald Trump said recently he has a great relationship with the blacks, though unless the blacks are a family of white people, I bet he's mistaken.
But he dropped out pretty fast, although he did explain what he'd bring to the table as president.
Part of the beauty of me is that I'm very rich.
Number 2, all a Twitter after election results. While Americans celebrated Obama's re-election, Trump was quietly sulking. Sorry, did we say quietly? We meant obnoxiously posting a barrage of hateful tweets. Actually, let's open this up to anything Trump has ever said on Twitter ever. What does he use his 140 characters for? Feuding with respected newsmen, quoting himself, bragging like it's going out of style, which it is, by the way, and name-calling. You stay classy, Donald Trump.
Let me tell you, I'm a really smart guy.
Number 1, Trump can take a joke.
Please welcome the second worst tragedy ever to hit New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald J. Trump.
Say what you will about the man, but he can take it as well as dish it out. And as we've seen, he can definitely dish it out.
Rosie is a loser.
President Obama has gotten a few jabs in at the Donald's expense.
You, Mr. Trump, recognize that the real problem was a lack of leadership. And so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
But the best was when he sat through an entire roast where he was mocked without mercy.
Donald say he wants to run for president and move on into the White House. Why not? It wouldn't be the first time you pushed a black family out of their home.
But as always, the Donald had the last laugh.
What's the difference between a wet raccoon and Donald J. Trump's hair? A wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion in the bank.
What are your favorite Donald Trump moments?
I am really proud. I am really honored.
For more entertaining trivia videos, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
You are listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with your host, Dave Bourne. Call in at 702-470-7664 or Skype in, username Nonpartisan Liberty for All.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and we are back for the first time in 3 weeks. Well, besides before the break, we were here. But yeah, that I had played that before the last time we talked about Donald Trump, and it's just never mind all the stuff that he's said during the debates, during his town halls, which he just repeats the same things. Basically, he talks about the deal with Iran. He talks about how the U.S. protects these other countries and they should be getting money for it. He talks about his wall and how Mexico is going to pay for it, and just how great he is. I've listened to 4 or 5 different town halls just to see if it's the same thing. And of course about how great he is, how he's going to win, how he's won all these states, and Ted Cruz is a liar, and Marco Rubio is, what did he call him? He called him Little Marco or something. I don't know, some shit like that. It's all the same. So really, I think you have people that look at him and just look at the fact that he's not a politician. He's kind of like a pop icon or something. I mean, everybody knows who Donald Trump is because he used his money not only to go bankrupt a bunch of times, but build buildings and businesses, but put his name all over everything and become famous and put his relationships and himself and his TV show, and because he was talking all this shit in you heard in if you listen to the clip that during the break that he had started this a while ago, not that long ago, but a few years ago when he started talking about the birth certificate and stuff like that. Because I remember at the time that he was friends with, he wanted to be a celebrity. I remember thinking, damn, he's going to fuck up like a lot of his friendships because he's friends with all these Hollywood people. And I had even mentioned that he was on a Method Man song. Like his voice was on the beginning, like, hey, where's your album? Or something like that on Method Man's second album. And essentially he was friends with all these people. And then he starts coming out and saying all these things that a lot of it was, the only thing I can really remember is clearly is I remember the birther thing, which was, the funny thing is that based on Ted Cruz's eligibility, it's meaningless because Obama's mother was born here. So if you're taking the same logic, Ted Cruz was born in Canada, but his mother was born in the U.S. So what's the difference? So I don't know. He said he was going to sue him or something too, and try to get him off the ballot at one point. But I thought that was kind of ridiculous. Not that I'm a fan of Obama. And then the other stuff he was saying, which I don't recall specifically, but are things that I know like his Hollywood friends would get mad about. So I knew he was someone who was very arrogant and wanted to be this big celebrity. Maybe he had thought, hey, I am a big celebrity with my show now, so I don't give a fuck what people think about me. Not that he seemed to ever think or care what people thought about him, but that he wanted to be known as a celebrity and be in that I guess not clique, but in that realm, or thought of that way by actual A-list celebrities. I don't know, but Alex Jones, and I don't know that this really means anything, but he had Jean-Claude Van Damme. I don't know if he had him on or he just has a speech, because there's a clip here that I have, and a statement that Van Damme says, you still have the Rockefellers, people like the Rothschilds, and I guess this is a quote, those big families that dominate continents. These are families that rose in 1827, a family with 5 sons that expands. It's above everything we're talking about tonight, stated the actor. And I guess he says that Trump is the only anti-globalist candidate. Now, I don't know, Van Damme's an actor and an action or former martial arts star. I say former star. I mean, he still does movies, but he's not the star he was. But so I don't know that what he says really means that much. I agree with him on the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and that these families and billionaires do run a lot of what goes on and run the politicians. But that Trump isn't all of a sudden the anti-globalist. I mean, one, even if he say he is, and he's against world government, which he may be, at the same time, he's for oppressing everybody in this country and having more. He also talked about more security. So as I was saying, you know, he wants the wall. He wants more security. He wants a bigger military. He wants all of these things. He wants more respect for the police, more people on the border, probably more people within the country that are checkpoints that are stopping people. So basically, what the fuck does, you know, how does that in any way better than, you know, of course, I'm against any world government because you actually have a government, but I don't know that if there were no borders and there were no governments, then I don't know that I'd have an issue with that. So I'm going to play this clip real quick of, I think it's like 5 minutes. I haven't heard it yet, of Van Damme. But you have Alex Jones promoting Trump like he's the fucking savior of what? He's more oppressive or just as than any other candidate up there. I would say if you want to compare candidates that based on levels of freedom, I would say, I guess Ted Cruz would support a higher level of freedom than Trump would, just because Trump is way down there as somebody who would oppress people in this country and take away freedoms and not care. It just his, even in his overall attitude, I don't give a fuck if that person's rights gets violated. I don't give a fuck about freedom of speech. Who cares about freedom of speech? And that he actually said about the freedom of speech part. So he doesn't care about people's rights getting violated. He's a businessman. That's what he keeps saying. So I'll create jobs. I'll do what I can for Americans in creating jobs. So you can have fucking jobs. You can work for me, basically. Work for the jobs I created by getting companies to stay here, and that will be my focus. Everybody will have jobs, but the level of freedom that you barely have anyway, that will continue to go away. So let me play this clip from Van Damme real quick. If I can, actually, I have to unmute this because this is on. And I'm not sure if this is just a quick something that he put together on his own or he was actually on Alex Jones. Oh, I know. Whoops. This is my fault. It should be coming through. And it is not. So what did I do? Let me go back to here. Now the volume on this is not muted.
I was.
Let me try to play it on another tab. I don't know if that's going to make a difference, but because the YouTube tab is playing, but this one is not, so I might not be able to play this on here. But anyway, the point is that that's what they're saying. This other douchebag, Michael Savage, supports Trump. Who else? Jerry Falwell, because of course he's religious now, or Jerry Falwell Jr. Sarah Palin, and I also mentioned Arpaio, and of course Chris Christie. It looks like it's very strange because they're traveling together. Chris Christie is basically his announcer. It's like now introducing Donald Trump. I've seen it like 2 or 3 times. The introduction of Donald Trump by I have this muted. I'm sorry. That was why.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was Kurt Russell, a month and a half ago. It's so many of these Hollywood people. Back when I would still go out to Hollywood occasionally to be on a TV show or be in a little movie or something, I would get invited to some of these parties, and almost everyone was anti-vaccine. Almost everyone was really pro-gun. Almost everyone told me that they were scared of Sumner Redstone and the big chiefs who made them go out and be liberal or they'd be blackballed. And so many of those big names you see go up and that talk about global warming and talk about man-made global warming and that push all this, they're actors and they know it's a fraud and they can't stand it. You can even see the look in their eyes when they get up there and do it. They all know it's baloney. And it's not that they're tuning into what I'm saying. They're just tuning into the real world, and there it is. So you go read the transcript of what Jean-Claude Van Damme said, and it's directly from this broadcast. But it's not because, again, I've got all the answers. It's true. And he describes since the early 1800s how the Rothschilds took over Europe, how they set up basically Napoleon, all the things that are historical, how they've set up a planetary government, how globalism plays the nation states off against each other, and if we get rid of globalism, we'll have freedom. And a great new...
And I agree with that, except the last part. Get rid of globalism, you'll have freedom. No, you won't, because you'll still have... It's just like the same concept as get rid of the federal government and you'll have freedom, because they're looking at it as, well, each state will be free if you get rid of the federal government, and that's not the case, because you'll just be oppressed on a smaller level. So not that I'm definitely against any type of world government or anything like that, because obviously the bigger, it's the same concept as the federal government over the states, then you're just getting even bigger. But to say that, well, then you'll have freedom, well, that's bullshit.
Renaissance. I mean, go read it for yourself. He speaks decent English. We really should push. Not that we like to get celebrities on, because just to get a celebrity on to talk about the price of tea in China, who cares? Christopher Walken was on the show once. I was told a few days before, Walken, here's the show. He likes the show, but he didn't want to get political. And he's going to just show up, during the Skype interview. And then he shows up, wants to talk about red wine and cooking chicken. And I started bringing up politics. He goes, I'm not going to do it, Alex. And, he was on like 10 minutes. See, there was no thrill. I like Christopher Walken. He's a very interesting actor. But, I could really care less, about going to a farmhouse and eating chicken with him. I don't want to lay around in Hollywood, while there's fires a mile away and ashes falling on me, with sitting there having a butler bring me a martini. That isn't fulfilling. Driving around in a $200,000 Mercedes Maybach. People would sell their soul for that. It means nothing. Nothing. But this is the whole world enthralled just for the petty trinkets. And it's not even about the luxury. It's not even about the security. I can see wealth for security and to help others. It's about being insecure and wanting to project that you're big and powerful to other people. So people are selling out to feel like they're accepted and like they've arrived. But then you have somebody like Jean-Claude Van Damme coming out saying there's a world government, it's run by globalists, Trump isn't owned by them, that's why they hate him, they're coming after him, they're destroying the nation states, on and on and on. He gets it. And when the paradigm shifts and people look to the actual controllers and the fact that they're basically tax exempt, that they've got armed guards but don't want us to be able to have guns and protect ourselves. When it came out that Piers Morgan had armed bodyguards, basically his show had canceled itself. No one was watching because people fundamentally get it. So this is just more proof coming in on a weekly basis that I don't care if it's Japanese entertainment people or French or German or British or Irish or U.S. or Mexican, you name it. In the real intelligentsia, and you just see that being mirrored now coming out of Hollywood. But in real intelligentsia, everybody knows this stuff. With truly informed people, this is just known.
So I thought they actually had the clip of Van Damme, so I guess they don't. So I apologize for that. But that was basically Alex Jones talking about Van Damme and what he had said about they showed in a video of Van Damme and showed Trump there, and that's what it kind of said in the article there as well. So I don't know why or what leads him to think that. And really all he's saying is, oh, well, he's not controlled. All he's saying in that clip, but I've heard him in other clips talk about how, he supports Trump and Trump's not run by these other people and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a bunch of bullshit to me because, again, even if he's not, which I guess it's possible, but I mean, to me, he would still be worse than somebody that is, because he's going to do the same shit. He's going to do worse shit than somebody who's not controlled. But I still think either way that there's no way that if he's not controlled by these people that he would get elected anyway. So that's a situation where even if he's not, which again I think is bullshit, he's more of somebody who would pull something to, with all of these, of course he says he wouldn't issue any presidential orders, but with all of the laws out there or orders out there that presidents have passed, they allow them to, in case of emergency, they can do this and shut down that. And I would just see him as a total, dictator. That's basically, he would want to run everything. And basically that's what he's saying, in to an extent anyway, that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. And I don't give a fuck what people think and about their freedom and freedom of speech and whatever. So I have one other story I want to talk about before we go. This is actually from InfoWars. As I said, they do have good stories. But this whole Trump thing is just, I was surprised when I saw Alex Jones supporting Trump, to be honest. And he's not really for freedom. He's just a guy who, he's more of a conservative who leans libertarian or whatever, and calls the government out on a lot of stuff that they're doing. But I wouldn't consider him somebody who supports true freedom. I just wouldn't, and that's why I stopped listening to him as much, because yeah, you can get a lot of good information, I think, from there. So I still occasionally will listen or go to the website, or but as far as what he stands for, I mean, he supports government and says, if we have the right people, he's one of those people, follow the Constitution, if we have the right people in there, we could turn things around, blah, blah, blah. So I guess that's his guy is Trump now. And it's scary. He did, I think, mention that Trump questioned 9/11 or something like that, or I never heard any of that or read any articles about Trump questioning anything that has to do with the government. I'm not saying that he didn't. And sorry, before I said presidential orders, I meant executive orders. And Trump did say, I wouldn't issue all these executive orders. But I think he would be the first person to issue as many executive orders as possible, because he'd be like, they're not doing it. Everything he says, it's bullshit. And I think we've shown that. But anyway, so they don't really, I think, support freedom. Just they're, for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know why they would support Trump. And I understand that the Republican establishment is against him, and why. And that makes people think, yeah, he must be for real, and we should vote for him, and because they're worried about their power and stuff like that. And whether that's true or not, the Republican establishment they're definitely against him. But I think that's more because he comes off like a clown, and he's not like part of their club type of thing. Not because they think he's not going to go with their, globalist program or something. But anyway, there were classified documents that were declassified regarding the FBI instructing high schools to inform on anti-government students. This, again, was from Infowars, but they actually linked to the document. So essentially, and we've been seeing things like this for years now, so this is nothing new. It's just now another document, and now it's students. But they've been kind of setting this up anyway. I guess what the document says is essentially for teachers, school administrators, to be, one, watching and reporting students who express any anti-government or anarchist or any of those types of beliefs, because they could be, dangerous, and encouraging them to stay away from that whole type of thing. I think along with, I guess it's 28 pages, I think, and I didn't read the whole report, I just read the article, but I think along with probably listing, or encouraging them to stay away from other students or reporting other students as well. So you have the teachers that are instructed to look out for that, and then they're probably instructing the other students to do the same thing. Like, if you have friends that are anti-government or talk about this type of thing, and of course they mention sovereign citizens, and essentially when they mention sovereign citizens, really they might as well replace it with anti-government. And who came up with sovereign citizen? It was probably the fucking FBI, because as somebody had pointed out a while ago, it is an oxymoron to be sovereign and to be a citizen. To be a citizen is to be part of, a subject of the government, and to be sovereign is to be your own, free person. So it is an oxymoron. So I believe the FBI actually came up with that term. And I remember seeing that 2 or 3 years ago on the FBI website, that the most dangerous terrorists are sovereign citizens. And they always go to that one video from, I've played it before. They use it for a training video. There were a father and son who killed a couple cops in one of the southern states. And they had based a whole training video that the Southern Poverty Law Center did. It's about 18 minutes long. I don't think I played the whole thing, but I played parts of it before, just to show how fucked up this is, because this is what they're using to actually train the police. So the same way that they put fear into people, say for terrorists, say like ISIS, that everybody's, and I've seen some of these polls, and some of the people these are people that are voting, and I don't know. I think the majority of people that vote, not all of them, because some people it's just a thing like I'll go and vote. But not me, but I'm saying that's what people say. But I think the majority of people that vote are not the smartest people in the world. And I don't mean they're not smart in like their job or their, whatever. But when it comes to those type of things, like they just don't get it. But anyway, so the FBI had issued this document and uses this term against sovereign citizens and says that they're the most dangerous terrorists, even ahead of, or the most dangerous threat, the primary domestic terror threat in the United States, followed by Islamic jihadists, and then militia / patriots and extreme anti-tax groups. Because those anti-tax groups, man, they might not pay their fucking taxes, and it's very dangerous. But that's what they go to. You look at the percentage of those type of people that have done anything, and people always go to Timothy McVeigh, who I think worked. There's a lot of evidence that that's not who did that, and that even what he used couldn't even do that much damage. He was in the military and had written a letter that to a relative, like I believe it was a sister, that he, after the military, was like in some specialized unit, like undercover. Watch the movie Noble Lie. There's a lot of stuff in that actually covers the movie covers the Oklahoma City bombing. But I mean, that's been 20 years already. So to point to that, and to point to this father and son, it really is, and use that as your basis for this is pretty ridiculous. But you already have all this stuff going on in schools anyway. Now, they weren't told, and you have it going on in communities, and you have it going on everywhere, where the see something, say something, all the documents that went out to different businesses. I remember, you could actually go to the government websites and get them. Like if someone has, acid burns on their fingers, if somebody pays with cash, so you had all those. But I guess they never, or who knows, they may have, this was obviously a few years old and it's classified, so they could have had other stuff as well. And it's been declassified, but it was classified obviously before that. But they have this with Common Core where they have a data file and a database on every, or they use a database to track every student, and they ask all these, not ask all these questions, but they have, I remember seeing it's like 50 different things. And then basically your whole life is in a database from when you're born now. So even though they came up with this document and informed, maybe to make it more of a priority, but it's not like this was something, I think, that wasn't going on anyway, is what I'm saying. That maybe they issued this and they kind of got to declassify it, I guess, if they, I don't know how they get it out there. Maybe they'd give it to principals and tell them not to, or it was classified but given out on a need-to-know basis. I don't know how they work those fucking everything is the amount of classified information now is just ridiculous. And it's so funny how Obama talked about we need more transparency, and he's been the least transparent president probably ever. However, I think that that's going to continue. So I think with Obama, it's not even him, it's whoever was the president at that time would have done mostly the same shit. So the president after is probably going to be even less transparent, or they're going to make it seem like they're more transparent when they're not. Basically they're going to continue with their same bullshit agenda, no matter who's in there. But yeah, this is just another thing. I think that they're watching the kids anyway. They're putting notes in their file, in their database. But this is, it even talks about the see something, say something, that this is the latest manifestation of that, which is basically another, it says it shares a parallel with East Germany. And I had mentioned a while ago that that's what I call the U.S. now. It's East Germany. Now, East Germany doesn't exist as East Germany anymore. I guess it exists now as the United States. And it's funny, the whole wall thing, too, because they had a wall. So you had all these informers, and it says in the article that at the height, they had 624,000 informants, or that was the network of the Stasi. And that was in a country of only 16.5 million. So you imagine in the U.S. of 300 million. And of course, they didn't have the technology that the United States has now, because it was, I think East Germany ended was it 89 or 90? So the wall finally came down, and that's where it's going. That's not where it's going. That's where it is now. Is it? How far is it into an East Germany style country? I don't know. I think it's pretty far. If you're saying the middle, if it's a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being right where it was at, it's at least in the 5, if not more. But see, all of the things that they're doing electronically they didn't have the ability to do. So it's like they're doing the same things just in a different way, and you're not even aware of them. So I think people look at them like they're not going on because they don't see them. So even though, okay, instead of having a person, you have a camera or a cell phone or data being taken from your electronic devices. So if you look at it that way, I mean, really, what is the fucking difference? So that's where things are at as far as I'm concerned. People just, you tell people these things and it's still the same. Oh, it's not like that. America's free. I mean, you listen to these politicians, and I was listening to Marco Rubio's speech and talking about how free it is. And I mean, okay, granted, his family came from Cuba. So compared to Cuba, yes, the United States has a higher level of freedom. Sort of. I mean, see, the behind the scenes stuff is the stuff that it's hard to compare to anything else. Because one, if it's having the same effect, what's the difference? Like if you have somebody standing there, but instead you have a camera on you all the time, what is the difference? And you could say, really, there is none. Or if people are recording your conversations all the time and you know they're being recorded and there's a tape recorder right there, you see it and it's evident that that's what's going on. But the fact that the FBI can turn on your phone camera, can turn on your phone and listen to you, your computer, all of those things, records all your conversations, stores your texts, has a big file on you, can kill you anytime they want to, the government in general, the police, all the laws that are being passed and enforced, all the executive orders that are out there, that the things that they have the ability to do, to shut down cell phone towers and electronics and things like that. I mean, it's just, and it goes so much further than that. The whole militarization of the police. How are we not living in East Germany? Really? The only difference, I guess, is, again, it's the U.S. does it in a way that they want to maintain the illusion of freedom. So they try to do it in a way where, as much as possible, it's not in your face, or you don't see it, or you don't realize it. Because that's the best way to do it. Because if it's in your face all the time, then obviously, yeah. But, I mean, I see helicopters flying over my neighborhood all the time. What is that? Now, a helicopter compared to a tank is a lot different because, it's higher up in the air. You hear it. You can kind of see it. But you think of it differently. But what's the difference? It's police helicopters, or who knows, some other agencies' helicopters monitoring what's going on. And that's what it is. And it's definitely a total surveillance state. And what they're doing with this as well, this is kind of kids that got through somehow to high school. And that's why you need to take your kids out of government schools. But kids that made it to high school and somehow got through with these ideas to identify them and stomp out those ideas. Because the whole system is set up to graduate through the high school and all these ideas are already gone. Any kind of questioning of government or anything like that, or even the system, things go even so much deeper when you think of just the system, meaning you grow up and get married and have kids and you work a 9-to-5 job and for this corporation and blah, 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 and the white picket fence and all of that shit. This American dream that was created to keep people almost in this whole matrix, because maybe that's not what you want. And yes, people have to pay bills and people have to be able to live, but at the same time, you're brought up to believe this is how it should be. And of course, that's how they want it. And they collect the taxes off of you. Then you have more to lose because you're married and have kids, and they can hold that over you, and you're not going to stand up and fight back. And all of this stuff all goes together. It's all related. But that's what questioning things leads to, is it's not just questioning government. You can question government and question, well, why do they have these laws and whatnot? But it goes so much deeper and deeper, and you go down to why. And I gotten to the point where really I don't believe anything that, any story that is in the media. It's like, yeah, it could be true. Maybe it's not. Who knows? And it's not it's the same thing like Facebook positioning stories so you'll see certain ones and you won't see other ones. It's the same thing that the government media does, is cover certain things so you'll know about some shit but you won't know about others, and then they shape your whole perception of society in general. And that's what they want to do. That's what government, I think, and I know I'm pausing because I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this in the couple minutes I have left. And this is something I can go into in another show. But I think I will really talk about the questioning of just everything and how it's potentially government has designed all of it. Now, I know people can say, well, why would they do that? And that's impossible. And how could it all come together like that and whatnot? But really, there's same thing, declassified documents. I did a show about how they had, CIA agents in TV studios as interns. They had, all of this shit. And really, I'm going to leave everybody with this. And I know tonight wasn't the best show, my first show back. And and I got to get back in the groove of things. And really talking about fucking the election and shit like that is not something that I really enjoy, to be honest. But really, what I hope people do, whether they listen to the show or not, is just question outside of your paradigm. Basically, looking at things, because if you just try to look at things through your perception, you're going to come to the same conclusions anyway. And keep questioning, going down to the root of everything, really. And for some people, that's, hard to deal with, but or people think you're weird or not normal, or because you're supposed to fit into this whole definition of what life as an American is, and it's this way, and that's how you're supposed to live, and if you don't, then you're weird or you're whatever. Why don't you want that? It's like your wants are created already. So anyway, that's all we have for all the time we have for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Check us out at NonPartisanLIbertyForall.com and Spreaker.com, where you can find all of the archives. Also, check us out on YouTube immediately after the show, where about 5 minutes will be posted on YouTube as well. It's just the audio. I am looking into doing video, but that's a little while out because I'm going to have to make a substantial investment there. So that might be a little while. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And, of course, I apologize if there was any rust I had to shake off, which will probably continue the rest of the week. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. Nonpartisan Liberty for All. Ken Shorgen will be joining us. Geopolitics and the economy.
You're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law. We enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer. The way the system